Good afternoon and welcome to Connections. And I am your host, Pastor Kevin McGee of the Victory Temple, Church of God in Christ. You're listening to us on IntellectualRadio.com. You can also listen to us on iHeartRadio. Connections is a show designed to keep you connected to the Christian community. So sit back and relax as we get connected. And if you wish to become a Connection sponsor, please reach out to me at bishop1915@gmail.com, or you can inbox me on Facebook. Maurice Miles, Pre-Planning Advisor for Dignity Memorial, 773-952-9487. They offer free pre-planning seminars for your loved one who has passed on. You can speak with them and they can discuss with you affordable burial insurance so that you can be prepared in the event of a loss of a loved one. You won't have to put together a GoFundMe page. Call Dignity Memorial and they will assist you in providing affordable burial insurance. That's Maurice Miles, Pre-Planning Advisor with Dignity Memorial, 773-952-9487. Do you need a daycare or after-school provider for your child? Contact Ms. Longstreet at 708-240-4060. They are enrolling ages 6 weeks to 12 years of age. They are an experienced, licensed family child care provider located in the Hillside community. The hours of operations are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and they are CDA, CPR, and First Aid certified. They offer a nurturing, safe, and smoke-free environment. Nutritious meals and snacks are provided. The place where children learn and have fun. They have been in business for 11 years, and Ms. Longstreet is a former preschool teacher's assistant and former court-appointed case worker. And they are a 501c3 recipient, and if you have donations, you can contact her. They're looking for a van. I do know that, and a play set, but contact Ms. Longstreet for all of your daycare and aftercare needs. Nature Sunshine, they are in the business of life transformation. Nature Sunshine brings health and wellness to millions of customers every day. And when people are healthier, lives are truly transformed. You may contact my wife, Dr. Karen McGee, who is a Nature Sunshine manager, for information on how you can prosper in health and wellness in a natural way. And you can also contact her for your Mary Kay needs. While you're being healthy on the inside, your skin can look healthier on the outside. Contact her at c.gee, that's CDOCGEE @yahoo.com, or you can call her at 708-302-5655. Today we have an awesome woman of God and a great friend as our guest can tell you. And I wish I could tell you how great of a friend she is. But she's a great friend. She is a mother. She is an evangelist. She's a teacher. She's a singer. You want to say something today?
No.
Okay. You name it, she's done it. She has faced many challenges, and she is an overcomer. And today we will hear her story. She is V. Tyson. I'm so grateful for you being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. No problem. I'm just glad that you were able to be here. And today we're going to talk about facing challenges. And you just have a awesome skill set. I didn't even go into your bio. I'm going to let you tell everybody what all, encompass who you are. I want people to hear directly from you some of the things of your background, where you worship and things of that nature, and then we'll go forward. But I've been watching you for years. I've seen you. You have some great children, very active, and that boy is a preaching machine.
Thank you.
Amen. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Wow. That's a great question. Who I am, I'm happy to say that first and foremost, I'm just a young woman, or as I like to say, a middle-aged woman who loves the Lord. I invited Christ into my life when I was 12 years old in my grandmother's grocery store down in Durant, Mississippi. She was a pioneer. My grandfather felt as if he wouldn't live long, and he wanted her to have her own business. So she was a Black woman with her own business in Durant, Mississippi, in a segregated time. And I grew up in that grocery store business, learned it inside and out, learned how to manage everything, run everything. And so one Monday morning, May the 24th, I decided to go to the store. My mother had given me some instructions on cooking, and I needed a little more advice, and got there, and the man of God was there inviting folks to ask Christ into their lives. And I learned from that point, if you can get saved in the grocery store, you can get saved anywhere. So, our platform is wherever we are and we open up our mouths. And so I grew up in the church and moved to Illinois in 1984 and stayed with the church and still with the church. Currently, I'm with that dynamic preacher from Bronzeville, Pastor Christopher T. Harris.
The Crusader.
Love him immensely, and his lovely wife, Lady JoJo, in the church there. And so just trying to find wherever I can to be busy in the vineyard. And I really believe that the vineyard for me is where I work and where I'm an educator, an administrator, where you come in contact with children. And it's my privilege to come in contact with over 4,000 students and staff members on a daily basis. So I appreciate God for that. I'm a mom, as you stated. I have two wonderful children, Elise and Eric, who is currently at the Palmer House Hotel in a concert. And my daughter's studying to be a mortician. And so I'm very, very proud of them and how God has blessed them throughout the ages. And yes, my son has been in ministry since he was about 4 years old, had license from our presiding bishop when he was about 7, which is the funniest thing on earth, but they did send him license. He made his report. So that's who I am. Currently divorced, loving God and walking in favor, which is really exemplified today to be here on your show and the opportunity to connect. I was thinking about you and Lady Karen and how we were together for the AIM convention down in Cincinnati. And I remember the late Sandra Smith and her sister Lily working with Scholastic Motivations, and of course, Dr. Edie and yourself and Elder Whitley. And just seeing you guys there and carrying on the legacy was inspiring. So looking forward to that again this year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people on Facebook Live that are shouting out to you.
Oh, wow.
Beatrice Carter, Michelle Smith-Bogan.
Hello, Michelle.
Angela Garrett.
Hi, Angie. Awesome director. Let me just give a shout out to Michelle. She had such an awesome reunion at our church, on the church I grew up in as a young adult. And we came from all around, from as far as New Mexico with Lady Rosalind and her sister Teresa, Pastor Terry, the incomparable Lola Johnson. And we just did the songs of our youth from the Jubilee and Voices of First. We had an awesome time under our wonderful leader, Bishop Sanders.
I wish I could have been there, but I was watching it on Facebook Live.
It was
just
great.
An awesome concert.
It was great.
We have some more people. Let's see. A friend of mine, Carol Jones, and Nicole Willis, and Jeanette Dillard Houghton is watching.
Yes, Sister Houghton. She was in the choir.
Watching.
Yes. Great friends, her and her husband. And Elder Johnson, also from out of New Mexico, was there on the organ. And Sir Walter
I saw
Jones.
Terrence with all his full beard.
Yes, he has the beard.
Newly appointed Pastor Ledger Heron Jr.
Oh my God, he was there. Yes, he was there. Wonderful. Been knowing him for years. Love him tremendously.
My district superintendent, Pastor George Kimbrough.
Oh my God, for real? Hi, Elder Kimbrough.
And,
he's usually at Christian Empowered Ministries with missionary Ethel Weatherspoon for her conference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jasmine Herbert is watching.
That's my baby. Yeah.
Hey,
she
Jazzy.
received an award that night. Love my baby.
And then a good friend of mine from my Sears days, Anitra Smith, is watching. So we have a lot of people on that's watching, want to hear about these challenges. And just, I know you can't give them all, but give us some of the greatest challenges in your life that has helped you to become the person that you are.
I would say in my earlier days, being in the church, you're going to get lied on, ostracized. And I remember going to the pastor asking if I could switch churches because it hurt. He said, no. He said, you got to learn to toughen it out, and you got to stand, and you've got to learn to serve God, serve the leader, be involved, and not let people get to you. And so I learned to stand and to stay despite. And you ride the storm out. The storm is just a distraction, and it's there to keep you from making it. So I learned to stand for one thing. Another challenge, when I was facing divorce and rearing my children, devastated beyond belief. But I had always gone to prayer, but I made a commitment that I would go to God in prayer for 1 hour every night. And at that time, I had a full-time schedule for school. I had 5 classes that I was taking per semester. So I was full-time with a 4.0. I had 2 very small children. I had a full-time job, and I had 2 babysitters, one on each side of town. So by the time I got the children, my classes ended at 10:20, about 3 times a week, and I would go into my closet and close the door and pray for that hour. And I did that for a year. I didn't know that I was going to face losing my paternal and maternal grandmother. I didn't know that I also would be diagnosed with cancer, but I was. And so I learned the secret. It wasn't the book that was out that Oprah was promoting at the time, but the secret was getting on your face before God and crying out to him. And if you do that, I promise you, he will equip you with power. If you're looking for power, if you're looking for the ability to make it through difficulties, if you go to God and you spend time with him, I read Mike Murdoch said that 1 hour spent in the presence of God will eradicate any of your plans that are not according to his will. So I learned the power of prayer, the power of intercession and going before God. And he strengthened me during that time. And he seriously gave me the oil of joy instead of mourning. And he lifted me and he established me. And I went on. I faced surgery with the cancer, and they took out my thyroid because it was cancerous. I lost my range, but that's okay. I'm alive, healthy, and whole. I completed not 1 degree, but 2 degrees. And God just gave me the fortitude to persevere. And when I'm in an interview in the secular world and they ask me, what is my strength? I am resilient. I'm able to bounce back because that's what God did for me. He gave me that. And whenever I get perturbed, I remember the secret is in prayer. It really is.
And that's so interesting because that was our Bible study topic on this past week. Prayer, the power of prayer in the 21st century. Because prayer today is a little different than it was 10 or 15 years ago. Prayer is more paramount in this day and time with all that we have going on.
Oh, yeah. And
we have to learn how to upgrade our prayer in the 21st century because we're faced with more and more things that we never would have thought about.
Absolutely, I
10
agree.
or 15 years ago. So prayer is definitely the key. And, as I said in Bible class, prayer ought to be so second nature to us. Is like breathing air.
Absolutely.
For the saint, prayer is like breathing air. And if we don't pray, we don't breathe. We can't live.
You can't.
And so we have to have a prayer life. And my greatest prayer time is early morning while I'm driving to work. I'm just myself and the Lord in the car, and I'm just, I'm talking to God, and then I park for a little bit and just keep on praying. Then I go do what I have to do. So, but I'm glad to hear that prayer is what, the challenges have to strengthen your prayer life.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it'll bring you to your knees. It will. When you're faced with adversity and you do not know what to do, go to God in prayer. The Bible tells us to pray without ceasing. And even the songwriter wrote the song, Go to God in Prayer. We suffer so much peace that we often forfeit, the words say, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. And we're so consumed with being in church and being seen and having the right title, this, that, or the other. We forget the rudiments of our salvation. Jesus would go alone. He would leave the disciples and go off by himself, and he would pray in his humanity. He was God the Father, God the Holy Ghost, and Jesus. But as the man, he prayed, and we have to pray. We have to get in the presence of God. We even have to fast and pray, which is something that folks don't do as much as they used to. I don't like to give a blanket statement that the saints aren't praying, the saints aren't fasting. Yes, they are. There are people who are fasting and that are praying. They might not have titles, positions, and platforms, but if we weren't praying, if we weren't fasting, what in the world would we be doing? You made a point earlier that it's our breath, it's what we do, it's our communication with God, it's how he talks to us. And so if you don't keep that communication channel flowing, you're going to miss out on what God has to say to you. And it's all in his word.
Exactly.
Because he brings his word to you to edify you, to build you, to lift you up. And trials and tribulations, get in the word of God and pray. Open up your Bible, begin to pray, and you will see the hand of God begin to move in your life in favorable ways.
And when you are not praying to God, you become estranged.
You do.
And the longer you go in estrangement, then you will be divorced from God.
Backsliding Israel. He's married to the backslider, that heifer that just will not act right.
Woo! I tell you, that's a whole nother show in itself. Prayer. Maybe we'll do a prayer show. You mentioned that you're a cancer survivor.
Yes.
I want to call it a cancer overcomer.
Yes.
You're a cancer overcomer. How intense has your faith in God become, transformed because you are now an overcomer?
When I got the news, I was standing in a classroom, and they said, we need you to get to the hospital. We need to talk with you. I said, okay, but why? I'm busy. And the doctor said, well, we found something and we need to talk to you about it. And your heart just drops. It literally does, because you don't want to hear the C word. And I hope this will encourage someone, because cancer is cancer. And if you've never heard those words, you have no idea. And I was thinking, here I am with 2 small children. What am I going to do? And I chose to believe God. And I said, I'm not owning this. I'm not going to call this mine. I always maintain that the doctors said that they found cancer. That's what I said. I never said, oh, I've got it. I refuse to accept that, because what you allow in your spirit and what you talk, words are life and spirit, Jesus said. So you're going to become what you say. So if I say that I have cancer, I do have it. But if I resist that and I call the pastor, he said, do what you need to do. They say surgery, go through with it. God is going to bless you. If they get in there and they don't find anything, it was a mistake. Okay, no problem. And so I just refused to own the name, and I called myself healed. I called myself delivered, and I went on and did the biopsy, and it should have taken maybe 20 minutes. It took over an hour and a half, and I just held on to my faith. And I heard a prominent pastor say just the other day that people don't like to deal with the fact of when you're in the valley. It's not pretty. You are desperately trying to believe God, to quote the scriptures that you know. You're calling on those that, as Sister Anjanette says, know the words of prayer. And you're holding on, hoping that what you're doing is lining up with the will of God, expecting results. And so I did have to end up with the surgery. And it was during the time that I finished my bachelor's degree in English education. And even the day I graduated, my throat was like out to here from the surgery. But the blessing was when I got in to, after the surgery, you go back for your follow-up. And he talked to me about getting my calendar out, setting chemo treatments, radiation treatments. And he decided, I'm writing this stuff down. And he said, let me check the path report, because it had gone to the CDC. And he came back. And I've heard the old saints say that the doctor scratched his head like this. And he was doing that. And he said, I don't get this. And I looked like, because I couldn't really talk that well. And he said, I do this surgery all the time. I know cancer when I see it, but you don't have it, and I don't understand it. And as guttural as I was sounding, I was like, no, what happened? It was God. And he gave God glory. It was God. So I'm on lifetime medication that I have to take. And even with that, I didn't get the medicine that I needed to take for the rest of my life. And about a month after the surgery, it was December 24th, I could hardly walk, I could hardly move, and I knew something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of the doctors gave me the medicine I needed. And when I got to his office, he asked me why I wasn't dead, because if you don't get the TSH1 hormone in your system all day long, you die. You slowly fold, go into a coma, and you die. And he didn't understand it. So I know again that the hand of God was on my life to preserve me for such a time as this.
Awesome, awesome. And I would love for other people to hear that testimony. Um, we did a show a few months ago
Mm-hmm.
talking about cancer survivors. A friend of mine, he was, I can't remember what type of cancer that he had, but the Lord delivered him. It was a survivorship show,
Okay.
from various stages of disease
Mm-hmm.
or medical conditions. Because we had a
Yes.
young lady who, a friend of mine, Evangelist Robin Festerson, who actually died.
Wow.
I believe she was dead for 12 minutes, and the Lord brought her back from a routine operation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes, we need to hear more of these stories of victory. And I'm going to just segue. I have a friend of mine right now, and we're going to devote a show later on this month towards transplant and kidney disease awareness. Byron Lipscomb.
Okay.
He was a high school friend. He is a high school friend of mine from Whitney Young. Was my locker partner, and he's in desperate need of a kidney right now.
Wow.
And he has grown weak, lost a lot of weight,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people don't know that. When it comes to the transplant list and things like that, it's a lot of politics involved.
Absolutely.
So people who are in desperate need are sometimes pushed back or taken off the list to make way
Absolutely.
for other people. So
Money talks.
Yeah, money talks. So we're going to talk about that. I want to try to schedule bring in a good friend of mine. We're going to talk about that later on in the week. I'm sorry, later on in the month. But that's definitely people need to hear more about victory testimonies, especially when it relates to cancer, when it relates to diabetes and other life-threatening illnesses. I want to switch gears.
Okay.
I want to switch gears. You mentioned you have your bachelor's degree and your master's degree.
Right.
I believe your master's is in educational administration.
It is. It
Okay.
is.
So we know that the president of the United States of America,
Uh-oh.
President Donald J. Trump, has appointed a young woman. Well, she's not that young, but appointed a woman to be the Secretary of Education.
Mm-hmm.
She has no background in education. Her children has never attended public education whatsoever.
Wow.
She volunteered in, for some school projects and things of that. I think like bake sales and things of that nature. So she feels that qualifies her to be the Secretary of Education. When they asked her a question about guns in the school, she made a comment that guns should be allowed because of the grizzly bears, I guess. So,
that was hilarious.
Maybe where she lives, there are grizzly bears, going through the school attacking the children. I don't know. Maybe they just want an education as well.
Wow. Yeah, that was hilarious.
But that's neither here nor there. But if you were the National Education Secretary, what are the key components that you feel, and based upon your experience, what are the key components that you feel are needed to improve our schools?
That's a heavy question. And if you work in education, you deal with those components every day. And I think the first thing we need are administrators and even a Secretary of State who has experience. If you have not walked the walk, you really don't have anything to contribute to the conversation until you've been in the classroom and taught the classroom and interacted with students on a daily basis and parents and the community from the ground up. Then you don't have anything to contribute to the conversation. Her appointment was extremely scary on so many levels, because you have people in the trenches who are working hard every day, the unsung heroes who are raising our children, educating our children. And so for me, I think that one of the things as Secretary of State, which I would never ever want to be.
Secretary of Education.
Thank you. I don't want to be Secretary of State. That's even worse. But one of the problems that we have in education today, we change the names of what we do to help our kids, supposedly. Common Core standards would be eliminated. The standardized test. In my day, you took one test per year, and now all we do is test our kids all day long, every other day. Every other month, there's a different test. In the run of a year, you could have 8 to 9 different types of tests, and it gives the kids a number that they have to deal with, which ties into their self-esteem, which definitely lowers it, because the tests are biased against minorities to start with. So if you've got minorities taking the PSAE, the SAT, the ACT, and they don't have the proper tools to prepare them for these tests, and you give them a number and say most colleges and universities are looking at 2021 and they're getting 13 and 14 because in their household their vocabulary was about 500 to 1,000 words, and the child who's been exposed to more in more middle class, upper middle class, and affluent neighborhoods has a 10,000 word vocabulary. By the time they get to kindergarten, they're already off. And when we as parents bring our children up in a culture of music, technology, and things of that nature, it can be a disadvantage. My children had to read. I read to them. I took them to the library, and they had to hold the physical book and read. And they exceeded on every test they ever took. And so that was just a blessing. But it's what we put into our children in the home, which is the first thing in the home. We need to go back to basic morals and principles in our homes, where there's standards. In my home, my children had a bedtime, even at 17 and in high school. My daughter had to be in bed at 10 o'clock. She just had to, because you need the rest. Proper rest, nutrition, these things matter. And you have people in politics who don't understand that in households in America, children are not getting proper nutrition because the money is not there, or people are laid off, or whatever the extenuating circumstances are. So you've got to deal with that. So I'd like to do away with standardized tests. I'd like to do away with the way we evaluate teachers. You know what I'm saying? It's all subjective, it's political, and sometimes the good teachers overlooked, and sometimes because of politics, because of nepotism, people get promoted that shouldn't be promoted. And that's what we're facing. And my former principal had on his desk, it ain't the kids, it's the adults who are ruining things. And when you look at the charter schools and the vouchers, that's taken away from the public schools. It's taking our money, and our kids are educated based upon the money that is available through the businesses in the neighborhood, the taxes. So if you got neighborhoods where they don't own homes, your tax base has already been depleted. There's nothing to give back to the children. So there is inequity in education. And so we need to fix our problems. When you talk about violence and in Chicago and around the country, until you empower people with education, jobs, so that they can pour into their children, buy homes, and have more, then you're always going to have that inequity. And when you don't prepare folks, then you're definitely doomed. And so I would advocate that we really get away from charter schools and the voucher program, because if you're giving $7,000 for a voucher and the private school is $14,000, where are the parents going to come up with that money for that? So there's just a lot of things, a lot of dynamics. Bring the real professionals to the table who deal with this every day, not just for politics, who can address these issues.
And I agree with you. Shout out to Evangelist Jerlene Smith, who's watching right now.
Oh, bless you, Mom.
And my friend Maurice Miles, who's one of our sponsors. I agree with you because In my experience, my brief history of teaching, with Truvine, we had our own school,
Right.
and dealing with the children and dealing with the parents, uh, you just see certain things, certain elements that are not present today that may have been present when we were coming up.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, there is a disconnect in our communities. There's a disconnect because um, we don't have qualified leadership for our schools.
We don't.
Many of the school boards are taking power away from principals
Absolutely.
who are right there on the front line. They're in the schools. They see what's needed for their school, but the school boards have taken that power away. And then on the governmental level, be it local or state or even federal, you have people who are business CEOs who are placed in position who their children have never entered a public school. They've always gone to private.
That's the sad thing.
And they feel that what works in the private can work in the public. Well, you give the public the amount of money that you gave to the privates, then yes, it can work.
Absolutely.
But until then, no. And I agree with you about the standardized tests and even the Common Core. Now, my exposure to Common Core, excuse me, my children have always been private schooled up until 2000 and I want to say 2000 and maybe 12. Truvine, and then they went to Providence St. Mel. When we got to Proviso West, my two sons, Common Core had been instituted. And me being a former teacher and many of the subjects that I've taught, they were taken at the time. Common Core just messed my mind up because they came up with a new way and a new system of teaching old things, especially math.
Absolutely.
It wasn't enough just to get the answer right. Even to show your work, you had to show it according to a standard that they set up. And even though you got the answer correctly and the way that you worked it out was correct, if it's not according to their standard, it's incorrect.
Absolutely.
And I said, wait a minute. In what reality is this fair or even right? The bottom line is you're supposed to get the question right and know how to come up with the answer. But you want to do it according to this. And so that's why a lot of people are championing against Common Core right now.
Absolutely.
And it's just crazy. And then, like I said, all the various tests. My daughter had to take the PARCC test, I believe, and then you have the PSATs. But what gets me is this: based upon their score, when you turn it over, there's a pie chart, and based upon where your score falls, your pie chart tells you what careers will be good for you.
Yes.
Based upon that. So if you scored, let's say in a lower percentile, they'll tell you the occupation that you will excel at would be blue collar occupation, construction worker, or a restaurant worker. Right then and there, you've taken the motivating factor from these children. They might have aspired to be a lawyer or a doctor, but you're telling them based upon where you are right now, you won't rise above the level of blue collar. You might as well hang it up. This is where you're going to be. And I don't want anyone telling my child that this is where they're going to be, because if you're telling them they might as well stop here, then you're not really educating them, because education is about teaching them. If they are right here, then you who are in the educational community do the job of teaching so they can go from here to here.
It's the creativity. It's the inspiration. I've always said to my colleagues, a teacher's job is to plant seeds. You don't know when they will germinate, but they will. Plant the seed. You might not see the behavior change in your class. You might not see them grasp it, but if you give them enough of a foundation, and if you love them and believe in them, then you will make a change in that child that will manifest at some point in time. I started all of my classes every year by, when the kids came in, I would say, good morning, winners. Welcome to Tysonville. Okay. You are a winner. That's what I see. If you don't agree with what I see, then we're going to work on that. But you are a winner. And my job was to help you blossom and to help you get it. And so I would teach and reteach until the concept they could grasp. I was there available before school, after school, night school. I did all of this for 10 or 11 years. I would get to work at 7 and leave at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, because they don't always get it in class. So sometimes they need that nurturing individual who will give them that time, whether you're paid or not, give them that time, because our job is not to say what you cannot do. It is to say what you are capable of doing if you put your mind to it. Another point that I thought about as well, we need more vocational types of opportunities for our children. Everybody's not going to go to college, and that's fine. But what skills are we teaching them in order to be able to do what they want? Your life is not limited because you don't get a college degree. Your brain and your mind and your will, those are the things that motivate you. A good family structure, good church environment, those things help you and they catapult you. That's why I love our church, because we embrace our children from more than one area. You got the Scholastic Motivational Ministries, you've got YPWW, you got Sunshine Band, you've got all these opportunities. You've got theater in the church now where kids can get involved and see their talents. And then take your talents and believe in yourself. You can become a writer. You can become, something that you might not have thought, an aerobics instructor. You can start your own business. You can become an entrepreneur. But if, like you said, if you have people that are taking these tests and these numbers and assigning them to you, the disappointment that I see on kids' faces around the country, and I've talked with educators today, getting their input as I prepared for this, the kids are just crushed. So when you're crushed in the home, you just like your daddy, you're not going to be anything. You just like your mama, they weren't anything. And then you get there and you shut the door on them and their opportunities and give them a number. No one wants to be assigned a number. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because it then says that there's a standard that you can't get to because of your color, because of your creed, because of your religion. And that's not right. This is a land of opportunity. America is a melting pot, and the money needs to stay in public education. And it needs to go into those areas and those cities, urban and suburban, where kids can benefit from the monies. It should not be that we have, and I'll just be bold and say, a new Trier with all that it offers, and you've got a district in the south suburbs or in the west, they're in the red, and they're cutting programs, they're cutting the fine arts, they're cutting, the only thing that you can hold on to are your core subjects, and your electives are falling. You've got to give kids more choice. That's where the choices need to be with the children.
Exactly. In certain school districts where every child has a laptop to take home.
Absolutely, to take home.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Yes.
In this day and time, we used to say it takes a village to raise a child. In this day and time, is the village still adequate enough to raise that child?
That question I pondered, and I found it a little comical. If grandma is a part of the village and she's still twerking, then no, it's not adequate. If grandpa, has made his living on the street selling medication, then no, it's not adequate.
He's
but
a pharmaceutical
yes, he's a pharmaceutical salesperson on the corner. But if you have and you do have communities where there are strong individuals that they're peeping out, they're watching, the village still is capable of helping with children. And I know that my children wouldn't be where they are today if the village hadn't surrounded them. And that was the village in the church. That was my family, close friends. They reached out, because anyone that pours positively into your child, it's a part of the village. So yes, the village can absolutely make an impact today.
All right. And I agree with that. The most detrimental factor that our young people have today is that they don't have a village to uphold them and to nurture them. They don't have the same type. They don't have exposure to the same type of teaching and training that many of us had. Number
Absolutely.
one, grandma is 35 years old.
Yes.
Mama is 20.
Yes.
So they have never really matured or fully experienced the training that they were taught before they started having children. So they
Absolutely.
really can't teach you values that they are still developing or may not develop.
Right.
And so there is something about, the Bible speaks of the aged and their wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
But if you and wisdom comes because of your life experience. But if you've barely gone through anything, you have nothing to pass down.
Nothing.
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 So that segues to my next question. What is the most significant piece of advice or teaching that you have been able to pass on to your own children?
I teach them to have a commitment to excellence. My mother said, if you're going to do it right. My grandmother taught us the same thing in her business. If you're going to do it right. Kindness goes a long way. Um, One of our deacons, Deacon McClendon Smith, always said it's nice to be nice. And when you're nice to people, it's going to come back to you. And when you have a good work ethic in whatever you're putting your hand to do, you can only succeed. You don't have to worry about your haters because God's going to get them. I don't believe in karma because that comes out of the Hindu religion. I believe in the word of God that says that vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. So you don't have to worry about people that are trying to stop your progress. It's never going to work. If you use it as David did to build up on, just go get in the presence of the king and play, and then let God put you in the king's place, as
All
Joseph
right.
did. He'll put you in power if you are humble. So just be committed to excellence, doing it right and treating people fairly. The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
I like your statement. We don't do karma because karma is Hindu.
It
The only
is.
karma we should be doing is credit karma. Check your credit.
Absolutely. Know your score.
We got a lot of people still chiming in on Facebook Live. God bless Bishop Colbert Hagler, John Netherly, Evangelist Lashley out of Bright Star.
Hey, Shauna.
Ah, the best first lady in the world, the first lady of the Victory Temple, Dr. Karen
Uh-oh.
McGee. She
Hi,
said
Dr.
your
Karen.
statement was very good. Sadly, this is not the state of many of our villages. We just don't have that support like we used to have.
Amen.
Used to be called the nuclear family,
Yes.
and we don't have that anymore. And we can't even blame it anymore on the father not being home, because for a long time we didn't have a father in the home, and the family was still progressing.
Still strong.
Children were growing strong.
Mm-hmm.
But now, and I'm gonna get off this point. But now I have to go back to it goes back to babies becoming parents too soon,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not always chronological age, mental age.
Oh God.
You can be 30 years old, but you're not mature enough to handle a child.
Absolutely.
So when you see a 80-year-old man deciding he's going to get his his ears pierced now. I've seen it. I know firsthand. When you got grandmama, who, like you said, she's still twerking,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
At the club with the kids,
at the
and so they
club.
don't have a foundation. In my home, we did 60 to 80 scriptures before we got to the bus stop every morning. We had prayer. We still do. We still have prayer. We still quote scriptures. We go to Bible study, whether it's online when we can't make it because of our schedules. But you have to have structure in your home, and that's part of the problem. And you can't let the TV raise your child. You can't let the culture, the music, and all of this. And I always tell kids, the people that you're looking at with the sagging pants, their kids are in those private schools and they have on uniforms, but they're selling this idea to you and you're buying into it and you're suffering. So you've got to, as former First Lady said, when they go low, you have to go high. Don't take their low standards for what they want to sell you and tell you how you should look, how you should dress, and how you should act. Because again, their kids are in those private schools and they're saying yes, sir, no, sir. And they're taking those classes that you don't even have access to. And they're going to college and they're getting degrees as the sons of millionaires and billionaires. And you're sitting here saying, I don't want to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
You what?
You know, I have to go back to when my kids were at Providence St. Mel. You know, now they've always been in uniform because they've always been in private school. But the discipline at Providence St. Mel was so, definite that, it was like you might have the rowdiest kids, but at Providence St. Mel, they were the most well-trained kids there. And a lot of people. Pastor Corey Brooks' daughter was a student there when my kids were there, and so many others. But walking down the hall to see a group of kids walking down the hall in single file line, no one saying a word.
Mm-hmm.
It was good to see. Some consider it harsh, some consider it boot camp, but it got results.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the urban prep, where all these young men are walking around with shirt and ties on and blazers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all 100% college, acceptance and 100% graduation rate. This is what these schools are trying to promote, positive images of our Black. And I'm saying Black because we find the disparity mostly in our, schools, but promoting the image of positive Black, young people going off to school, going off to college. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to put it out there. When I saw the photo of your president taking a picture with the HBCU.
Excuse me, why does it have to be mine?
taking the photo out with the HBCU, students and representatives. And then his, I forgot what part of his administration, the Kelly lady.
Advisor.
Yeah, the advisor. She's on the couch, with her knees folded, with a cell phone. I'm like,
very suggestive, very sexual, very inappropriate.
Very inappropriate. She was too comfortable, and they're taking a picture. I'm like, no, our young people of color deserve better than that.
Absolutely.
If that was a group from Harvard or Yale or Princeton,
she would not have done it.
She would not have done that.
She would have been standing to the side, away from the camera, and she wouldn't have been taking. We're too common. And we hear this in the church with our leaders, but that goes over to secular leaders as well. And respect. You've got the creme de la creme of the best schools. And then I believe it was Bessie DeVos that said that Black colleges came out of choice. No, they did not. They came because you would not allow us in these schools.
Out of necessity.
Out of necessity. That's why we have them. So give them the respect that they are due. You don't get to where you are on the average cheating your way, because cheaters never win in the end. So you've got men and women standing there who paid the price, who endured racism, ostracization, didn't have the money necessary to get to school, and they persevered anyway. When you attain the presidency of a university, that's pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to disrespect them.
Yeah.
No, class left January 20th.
My last question. If you were declared a living legacy,
ooh,
what would you want that legacy to be?
The legacy that I am striving, I lost my mom last August, and from the time I was a young girl and I grew up singing in the church, she said she wanted the song sang at her funeral, "May the works that I've done speak for me." So I hope that my children, that I've passed to them, the philosophy that I've grown up with, and that is to never quit, to never give up, to persevere. I don't care what the doctors tell you. I don't care what people tell you. I don't care what labels they put on you. If you stay with God, and this is what I tell them daily, stay with God, get an education. It's a winning combination. God and a winning combination, they work, because he said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So if I could leave them with the ability to persevere despite the odds, make your dreams come true, because it does rest on you ultimately. make them come true. Own something, you know, don't rent, own. Get an education, own, and use the passport that I gave you and travel the world.
Amen. Quick shout out again to our sponsors. Maurice Miles, Pre-Planning Advisor with Dignity Memorial, 773-952-9487. Contact him for any pre-planning for burial needs. You don't have to set up a GoFundMe page because you didn't have enough insurance to bury Big Papa. Call Maurice. He will make sure you have what you need to bury Big Papa. And then Ms. Longstreet, daycare and after school provider, contact her at 708-240-4060. And they are enrolling children from 6 weeks to 12 years of age. A licensed and experienced family child care provider in the Hillside community, and she will do you well. And then if you're not busy, you can also visit the Victory Temple Church of God in Christ every Sunday morning from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., 2000 West Roosevelt Road in Broadview, Illinois. Tomorrow's message is, are you ready to eat? Amen. Contact me if you want to be a sponsor on Connections. Our prices are very, very, very crazy affordable. Trust me. Contact me. Amen. And we just thank God for you being on the show, V.
Thank you so much.
Everybody's chiming in, and we're just thankful. And we're going to bring you back later on in the year because we want to hear about some more. We really want to bring you back for our Cancer Survivors show. We usually try to do that in October.
Okay.
We'll bring you back. And we're just grateful for the knowledge, for the information, the nuggets that you share with us on facing challenges.
Thank you.
Amen. God bless everybody. Tune in for Humanities and the Headlines on IntellectualRadio.com. I'm your host, Pastor Kevin McGee. God bless you.